as a whole. And I know that this is going to be a very power-packed session by Maya ma'am itself. So I'm over to you, ma'am. And thanks a lot for the opportunity.
Thank you, Grace. Am I audible? Yeah, no? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So, good evening, everybody. So good to see you all for our get-together, let's say so, get-together for the end day of Women's Month celebration. And it's like a pleasure to be with you all and discuss issues of inequality and intersectionality. And of course, we know various topics, themes were taken up every year to discuss during this month in different various discussion programs. And this time we have taken the topic as inequality and intersectionality. Of course, I am so grateful. I mean, I appreciate the Dhisha Academic and Research Wing for organizing such program. And also I'm grateful for being invited here to discuss this topic with you all. And I have my friends from Kerala and also from Northeast, Meghalaya, Manipur, etc. Here. So I hope we will have an interesting discussion session. I'll just put forward some of my thoughts here regarding this topic. I had some slides, but I was not able to share it from here. I think Kanak will share it here. Okay, so as Grace has already put it forward here, this terms, explaining the terms, equality, intersectionality, equality, equity, and intersectionality. These are the terms that Grace was explaining here, trying to define or discuss this topic. Beginning with this topic, I think we have to really be thinking about the terminological aspect also. The meaning, of course, we know we are very familiar with the term inequality. We have been always using it, equality, inequality, because for many years, decades, and of course centuries also, we could say, in terms of women's situations. That means women's situation is not that much changed yet. When we talk about women's situation in history, we have to also discuss, of course, at this point of academic enterprise on or thought systems, we have to also discuss it in terms of gender aspect. Not only using the term women, but the title was suggested like this from the organizers. So I thought, okay, but then I would like to actually start with discussing the term history itself. And women as such, I was already trying to point out that women's studies has become like gender studies. So we discuss it more with gender issues, so that it's not only an issue of women, but also of other genders. We have to analyze it in that way. It is in that stage only. It's like we are also discussing in terms of the intersectionality issues. So history as such also, we know it's quite a long time we have been saying that this problem with the term history is actually talking about his story, not her story or any other gender story. It's always about his story. So there is a problem that feminists have already discussed about the term itself. But for the convenience, we'll use the term history itself. And moving towards intersectionality, in my presentation, what I was planning to talk about today is actually just a bit of definition about intersectionality. As already Grace has said, the term is quite confusing, we may say, but at the same time I have a feeling that it is actually helping us or supporting us to discuss the systems, to explain the inequality, systems of inequality, social systems, let's say, or even any system, social system or conceptual system even maybe, all are of inequality or showing some kind of issues of inequality, and that based on various aspects like gender, caste, ethnicity, socioeconomic identity, disability, regional identity, all various aspects. How do they intersect to make somebody's status privileged or discriminated, subordinated, marginalized, to say so. So this term has actually been familiar for us. I mean, some of us at least who are in these fields, who are working specifically in these fields, probably might be familiar with the term. It's like to discuss the inequality issues, we have been brought in this term as a tool or theoretical tool, let's say, a theoretical framework, or so we could say about it. So if we look at the history again of the term itself, we can go back to actually in last 3 decades we have been having that in the United States, not here of course. Recently only we have been using it in that way. So in the United States, probably some of us might have heard, some of you might have heard about this name Kimberly Crenshaw. She has been introducing, let's say, she has been introducing this term. 3 decades ago, she was writing an essay. In that article, she was actually putting forward this term. But recently only, if you could change the slide, viewers can also read if needed, Anak or Grace. So we have to look at the black feminist issues, from where this term came up to address the issue of race in about African American women. So Kimberly Crenshaw, being a black American woman, she was an advocate, activist, writer, and socially active person. So she recently, we can see in 2019 only, one book she has written on intersectionality. So probably our confusion regarding the term and the concepts behind using the term, etc., would be more clear if we go through this book, I think, especially for researchers. So what I was trying to not point out is that, see, only 2019 this book has come out. Where was this discussion? Earlier also it was there. So why it didn't get properly documented or published earlier? We could think like that. This itself shows an issue of intersectionality there. She talked about it 30 years ago, but it comes out into the scenario, popularized and getting accepted and being used by thinkers or researchers, etc. Only recently we can see. So only a few years ago it is coming up as a book as such. But earlier in 1989, Crenshaw actually had written this article in which she mentioned this term intersectionality. The article that time was demarginalizing the intersection of race and sex, a black feminist critique of anti-discrimination doctrine. feminist theory and anti-racist politics. So it's evident that the term was coined for African American women's issues. The racism in America, of course, we are quite familiar with this issue, but the intricacies in it, when we discuss the issues of women and the inequalities in terms of various layers of inequalities, in terms of various reasons, that's what we have to note here. So to understand this term, actually I think we should go back to the history again of this term, of this concept, of the issue raised by Black American women within the feminist movements, which was not much heard until recently, let's say. So intersectionality issues, when we can have various other examples in after 3 decades of introducing this term through this article by Kimberly Crenshaw. We can see various recent feminist women, Black feminist women who are actually talking about the issues, still the issue of race and inequality, issue of inequality in terms of race is there in the American society. So that you can see some examples. That's why I'm trying to talk about what Washington Post, newspaper there in the United States, reported in 2019 September about one meeting, an anti-racist book festival at American University's inaugural program of anti-racist book festival. There was a talk delivered like race in the title, Race 101, by an activist, Black feminist activist, Rachel Cargill. It was her debate lecture also, and this spread through the material because she was talking about this issue of racist issue that Black feminist women would face within the feminist movement. So she was she has been actually recently placed with the other black woman, Black feminist, Black human rights activists and writers like Yoma Olo, Imani Perry, etc. These names actually we haven't heard much. We are sitting here and we are studying a lot of feminist movement history, etc. And we have been nowadays teaching and discussing it in the classrooms also, and general programs like this also for some years now, of course. So we haven't heard these names that much. Why? This itself shows the issue of intersectionality and how the issue of being marginalized or neglected or not being heard due to the reason that you are a woman or any other gender than male. This is also again overlapping with the issue of being a Black woman, African Black minority they will use, but issues of ethnicity, to say so, in the Western scenario, that we can really very well hear from her words. So she was talking about how the realities of race cannot be intellectualized despite the fact that we were in an academic setting, how race has been defined and changed over history. So it's like, such contemporary discussions in the past decade, few years ago, 5, 6, 7 years, in between that time also, we hear those many voices from the United States discussing about inequalities in terms of race, ethnicity, etc. Mainly race and ethnicity we would see there in this case. So this issue of inequality and intersectionality discussion, we could even make it looking at the history again, going back. The Black feminist movement actually, the voices actually were heard a century ago. If you look at the history, we can see that also, which we do not really discuss very well. We don't know much, and we are not studying that much. We are not writing about it, or we are not even aware. Generally, if you are not particularly going to look at this. So if you are only looking at feminist history, even then we are not really getting into these aspects. So for example, even before it was getting popularized, we know we have been like scholars, activists, all were used to discuss that there are inequalities in terms of caste, religion, race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality identity, gender identity, local identity, or linguistic identity, all these things. But it was not very well organized. Let's say this term intersectionality gave us a tool to make it organized in the theoretical discussion as well as conceptual clarification in the process of making a conceptual clarification. So we could see the origin of the term and the conceptual discussion about intersectionality started in the United States with Kimberly Crenshaw, but the story actually was not starting from there. Historically, if you look back, the issues of gender and ethnicity, it was much before we could see. Though the notion of intersectionality is rooted in the racist experiences of minority women in the United States, we could say that it became a kind of instrument to address the issue of inequality based on all the other aspects. Let us now look into this different aspects, particularly here in this today in the discussion. I am trying to talk about ethnicity, gender ethnicity, and also regional identity. All aspects I am not going to discuss in detail. So particularly I am going into these specific things that only we will get time. I think I will cover that at least. So if you look at the issue of gender and ethnicity, we could see some early criticism of the artificial separation of gender and ethnicity in women's lives. This was actually generally among Black and Latina feminist movements of 1970s and 1980s, which argued that the mainstream feminism had advanced the cause for white women while silencing the voices of minority Black women. This is what I was already mentioning. One example I would cite here, for example, the Combahee River Collective. There was a Black feminist lesbian socialist organization called Combahee River Collective in Massachusetts, active from only 1974 to 80, few years. Of course, we can see that some even women's movement, even women's groups, if it is like any lesbian women's group or maybe a gay group or such groups actually generally couldn't prolong their activities or discussions. Like that it happened, I think, in the United States also. Everywhere we can see that scenario. So this Combahee River Collective, comprising black lesbian, emphasized the importance of understanding multiple forms of subordination that comprise interlocking oppressions. That is the inequalities faced by being woman, being black woman, and being a lesbian woman. So these three layers, they are an example of intersectional aspects overlapping in the process of making someone or some people invisible. Like this kind of examples we can see also in other parts of India, and for example in Kerala. Here some people participants are from Kerala and from different places. So I will mention that in Kerala also there was a group like LGBTQA support network group. So this group was also only few years active, but then it revived. Of course it has revived. Recent years, it has 2 decades time, it has revived its gaps and still working on. Like that, even a women's group we could see in Kerala also. I would say women's groups were also all going off actually, because few women gathered for the purpose of working against the violence to protest on the violence against women and the issues of violence against women. But they are after some time they are not existing there as a group. So this is happening with women's group and probably also sexuality minorities group. All we could see really that happening in various parts of the world. So if we look at the gender and ethnicity in the Western countries, especially in the United States, that we can still see some more names, few names which we hear nowadays, like bell hooks, 1 or 2 names maybe now, like in Kimberly Crenshaw. So some known name, let's take bell hooks. People might have heard about her main book. First book is Ain't I a Woman? That was in 1981. This chronologic, we have to be very much conscious in seeing this time period where it comes, this discussion, and when it gets published, when it gets popularized. But before it was we think that it was first said here. But in bell hooks, we can see this term, Ain't I a Woman, was not actually from herself. She took it from a century ago, what happened in the Afro-American women activities. So Ain't I a Woman is actually a phrase used by question. It's not just a phrase actually. It's a question, a serious question that somebody is asking. It was first asked by Sojourner Truth, a black woman Afro-American woman who lived a century ago in the slavery system. So she was taking this question, from Sojourner Truth actually, to write this book that we have to note specifically also. And this Ain't I a Woman was not a book. Initially it was a speech given by Sojourner Truth, and which was first published by Frances Cage. She was not publishing or anything. Another woman, it's a white woman herself, published in 1863 after 12 years of her speech in a group, human rights activist group, where they were discussing about it's an abolitionist group, anti-racist movement, to say so. So there she was actually talking about the Sojourner Truth was actually talking about the issue of a black woman. Is a black woman a woman? That kind of a question. She being a slave, she being a black woman, and these kinds of issues are being posed by, it was being posed by this lady. But we haven't heard much about Sojourner Truth. The main thing that I would want you to note, it's like this time period 1863, which means 12 years before she talked about it in a group, means 1850s, beginning 1850s. That time she was active like a feminist, black feminist woman, though main agenda was this abolitionist movement, racism and slavery, to abolish slavery was the main agenda. But at the same time, one woman was posing this issue of a woman being not only being a slave but being a woman. This issue was being posed by her. These kinds of writings you can see, also very interesting writings by Akasha Gloria Hull, Patricia Bell Scott, Barbara Smith, together editing a book. All the women are white, all the blacks are men, but some of us are brave. Black Women Studies. So it was published by Feminist Press in New York. I think we should really concentrate and study more on women like Sojourner Truth. This will be giving us a very clear idea about the issues of intersectionality, how it is overlapped, and what category of women are heard. Even when we say that women are not heard and women are suffering from inequality issues and facing inequality issues, and more severe experiences for people from various other categories. So Sojourner Truth was born into slavery during that time, 1797 to 1883. She is during that time, what was the situation in the society that we know? She was fighting with her master. Being a slave woman, she was fighting with her master, and the story would say that she was in love with another slave man, but the master didn't allow. Like what we have stories like in our families here nowadays. Master didn't allow. Master married her off to another slave man whom he wanted to do. So it's like you can see the picture of Sojourner Truth also in one slide. I have kept it. If it is moving, the slide.
Hello, madam. Should I change the slide? Sorry for interruption.
Yeah. Slide change is not from my side. Next.
Which slide?
This is the one.
Okay. So yeah. Please intimate me when should I change the slide.
Okay. This is the one where we have Sojourner Truth. So like in what we hear stories in our heterosexual so-called families, that the child will run away, a woman will run away, etc., elope with someone or run away from the house, like that kind of happenings we can see there also. Like in the case of Sojourner Truth, she was then asking the master at least one thing, but that word also he couldn't really keep. So after her master failed to honor his promise to free her or to uphold the New York's anti-slavery law of 1827, her name was earlier Isabella, she ran away, and then she said the master, she told the master actually, she later informed him that I did not run away. I walked away by daylight. After experiencing a religious conversion, Isabella became the ignorant preacher, and in 1843 changed her name to Sojourner Truth. Sojourner is a term it has French origin and various such meanings, Italian origin, etc. Something like a sovereignty related term we can see. So it's for truth, pursuit of truth, or for complete truth, or sovereignty in truth, or something like that, meaning the name. So during this period, she became involved in the growing anti-slavery movement, and by the 1850s, she was involved in the women's rights movement as well. It is there where she was talking about this with a question, "Ain't I a woman?" So please next slide. So the question is that where we here we can I point out this particular year, 1850s. So where do we start? If we think about where do we start with women's movement, history of women's movement in the West, if you look at the women's studies courses and gender studies courses, generally we have always been talking about first wave feminism, second wave feminism, third wave feminism, like that. We will say the first wave feminism started with 1841 Seneca Falls Convention, happened in New York in the leadership of Elizabeth G. Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth G. Stanton. Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, like that. What we are always talking about the history of first wave women's movement. So it is during the same time Sojourner Truth was also being very much involved in the feminist movement, talking about the issue of black women among the feminist women, black feminist women among the feminist group. The women in the feminist group, majority white women. So her name we haven't heard. Her name we don't include, or we haven't included also when we talk about first wave feminism. So this is another very clear example of this issues of intersectionality, in which this play of various elements make people either heard or unheard, accepted or neglected. So the ethnicity issue and gender issue could be keenly discussed with these kinds of examples from the West. So in the Indian context, next slide please. We will go into Indian context now. So it's like, in India, what do we do with regard to analyzing or documenting, studying the women's history? So we have heard that in 1970s, 60s, like that, we have this thing. Various discussions happened in Delhi, Bombay and metro cities generally. We do not hear much about what happened in the south or in the northeast. So I find a kind of similarity. I mean, we can generally say it is the issue of the subaltern. So what I see now in the, my observation and analysis would be like this. In Northeast also, strong women are there, and women's movement, protest, historical events have happened. But we are still not into the kind of level where we include it all into the Indian history, Indian women's history, or in documenting everything, we miss out various things which are so important in terms of the activities that happened in India to address the issues of inequality. So in women's history, if we look at the Indian context, what category are we including is a question that we have to address. So India being a country actually with varied, it's more complex than what we have seen in the West, because India is having a complex society where we have various cultures of religion, maybe of religion, locality, region, ethnicity, tribes, caste, etc. So in terms of various elements, so we can really bring in the conceptual framework tool of intersectionality into the Indian context to address the issues of inequalities here. So to discuss this, I will bring in the cases, some pictures from Northeast mainly now. Of course, here people from both areas are there, but I think it is actually to be documented more, so that I am trying to talk about it in that way. So let us start. If we, I may not look into everything, but people here could also contribute, I guess, in the discussion. Recent some writings and some of my discussion with fellow colleagues and friends here around, like that I am trying to introduce something for, especially from my friends, participants from Kerala. So if we look at that aspects in Northeast, if you start from Assam, the entry point towards Northeast, a recently published book will show us, and also recently some news also came up regarding this. Now, if you look at the women's movement in Assam, we see a Mahila Samiti which existed long ago during the beginning, during the freedom fight and colonial time. So the book actually talks about the feminist versions which are there in the movement. Though it was Mahila Samiti during that time addressed more issues of other kinds of inequality, social inequalities, and also they were part of freedom fight and all, being part of the National Congress, etc. Is there, aspects are there, but interesting thing is that they also discussed and moved forward for some kind of feminist demands to make a change in the society. So the Chandraprabha Raikiani, who was the founder of Mahila Samiti, who lived during 1901-1972. She was from being a lower caste woman and also an unwed mother. She could still fight for the rights of women and lead the group like Mahila Samiti. So about this, you can see a recently published, all main thing to be noted, all these books, documentations are coming only recently. If we look at the also coming slides, you will see examples, stories of women, history of women who made important contributions in the society, are documented only recently in a detailed way. So Gendered Publics, Chandraprabha Saikiani and the Mahila Samiti in Colonial Assam. It's a book by Hemjyoti Mehdi. It explains the aspects. In which interesting point is that the Mahila Samiti women even put forward some steps to demand fixed meal time in the houses. Like our extremist feminists, they didn't say that we will not cook, but they will cook in joint families during that time. They'll cook, but fixed meal time. Because in families we know men of various men will come at various different times for food, and they will all want different types of dishes, and so that the women are always in the kitchen. So these kind of situations of women, it was addressed by as an initial step. We could see this did a great amount of movement, caused a great amount of movement in the society. Even recently I read in newspaper about this point, which was given as a news that Mahila Samiti people during that time did like this. But if we look at various aspects of intersectionality that are not that much addressed in any new movement of women or other gender in the society, that we cannot really see that much. But a spark was there in the history, though it was not taken forward, or it was not in changing into a kind of strong feminist movement, and later on or any other movement which is all not that much visible in the society. But there is a history of women interfering into the society, and that history was also not very well heard. For example, we haven't heard it in the south, or even in other parts of India. In the so-called mainland India, we don't hear much about what serious discussions and happenings are there in the society, northeastern society. So it's like it is also the point of regional aspect. I mean, the regional aspect that we have to concentrate with if we discuss intersectional issues. So then if we but we can see, if you could move into the next slide, Anna, it's like we can see, but one, you see that there is a stamp in Chandraprasad Kiani's picture. So she got some acceptance. We could really analyze it in this way, that it's because she was part of the mainstream social political movement, also the National Congress, the freedom fight, nationalist movement, and thus in that level maybe she might have gotten acceptance later, much later she has gotten, and the group was also heard in Assam. But we know not in the mainland, so-called mainland of India. It is also not very well documented, all the northeast aspects in the Indian history, to say so. If we look at Manipur, the northeast state Manipur, you can see, we will suddenly remember this event, of course. If we think about women's movement, protest, we will suddenly all would remember the shocking news that came from Manipur. But many years ago, probably many of the researchers sometimes wouldn't have noticed also, because it was happening in 2004. The news about naked protest of women in Manipur against the rape. It was a protest against the rape and killing of a 32-year-old woman, Tanja Manorama, by Indian Army in 2004. So after many years recently there is a book by Teresa Rahman, which was the detailed documentation, I think. Only recently it came in 2018. So you can see in the next slide the picture of that book also. It says the Mothers of Manipur is the name of the book, and with a subtitle 12 Women Who Made History. So where are the 12 women after that? And even during that time, what they have gone through, and what kind of response what kind of recognition we are giving it to that. This is a question that we have to also ask in India. So the book is explaining, trying to talk to these women and all incidents, what was happening during that time. So it shows that book, all the narratives and the documentation in this book will give us a picture of what was happening during that time. The historical event that we call it as historical event, but maybe the mainstream society wouldn't want to call it as a historical event, because it was not a good thing according to the mainstream concepts. But we can see that there was a very strong women's movement and women's group working there in Manipur. So it's called Macha Lema, Imas of Macha Lema. These women were from that women's group. It was not suddenly some women did like that, because we didn't hear all these details during that time in the other parts of India, who were these women, and all such backgrounds we never knew. So it's like this is the problem with in marginalization of due to the locality, regional aspects, ethnicity, all various aspects we can see overlapping here also. So formerly known as Manipuri Chanura Lesham Maru, which is later known as Macha Lema, was set up in 1969. So this group was existing there for decades. It was founded in 1969 in fact for the upliftment of women. Ethnic and regional minority issues could be seen intertwined in this, with the fact that these groups are not much visible in the so-called Indian mainland. Macha Lema was a strong group of many. This is what I get an impression, and generally whoever read this book will understand it, the fact that there were many strong women. It was a strong women's group, and many women were there, part of it as members. They were after serious discussion of a new way of protest against the rape and violence on women by the army. The group suggested any of the women who were 60 years old, 60 or around above, will go for a naked stripping protest. So this discussion, all the process that was going on during that time, it's explained in the book very well. So these women, for them, they can gained courage to do like that, and they were 12 women came forward to do this. So these women are the 12 mothers of Manipur, like that. Kind of an explanation is clearly put forward in this book, but that kind of information we are not actually taking into the discussions, mainland discussions on feminism. So women's groups in the Northeast are not much known to the other parts, but sometimes I think we can even see they were more strong than the other parts of India. And the issue with the region itself being marginalized is also affecting the activities done in that, social activities done in that area also. But Irom Sharmila's case, if we look at Irom Sharmila, we have heard a lot, of course. Though these protests by women are not very much accepted, heard in an accepted manner, we can see that it suddenly comes into the media and discussion, but after some time it goes off. It is never staying in the history, because it, like Jhansi Rani or any other, only few women who, if any women are there in the history documented properly, or other genders than male patriarchs. Even then, what category of women are being documented? That is the question that we can have with this intersectionality debate. So Irom Sharmila's case, if we think about Irom Sharmila, we could see that she was known as the Iron Lady of... But in 2000, we know that she started hunger strike. It went on for 16 years. And after that, what happened? Was she really getting feedback? I mean, a response towards what she has done politically. And these things we have seen somewhat in the news. But though it came into the current news clippings, later the details were never taken up into an attempt of documentation, etc. Recently there is a book about Irom Sharmila also, and generally about Northeast scenario. It discusses in the book. There is a discussion also that Mother, Where is My Country? That is the book name, published in 2016 by Anubha Bonsley. So a lot of details about Irom Sharmila's situations and the aftermath of the protest, hunger strike, and which ended up actually in she will just lead her personal life. Even for that, she had to face various problems. This is because she is a woman. Also because her ethnicity or regional identity, political identity, all these things overlapping and making her finally to end up having no importance of what she has done or what she should do in the society, whether she is anybody in society. This discussion is to be still more taken up seriously. So these examples, very serious examples from Manipur, we can see very current affair aspects also we could see actually. For example, recently also what's happening in Manipur about that, there are some strikes going on. Before coming into that, let me also just again say something about women's group in Manipur history, which existed there over 3 decades now. There was recent news recently. Women have been to prove that women have been very vigilant in Manipur, and they are still. according to a recent news, the 30th foundation day of All Manipur Tammi Changme Apunba Nupilu, this group was observed at near one place called, Lake Hai Mamang. This observation was actually starting with the lighting up and a ceremonial lamp, followed by floral tribute to the portraits of late 3 women who were very active in this group. Momom Lema, Modhu Lema, and Sanahabi, Ongbi Sanahabi. These 3 women were so many years they have been active. There's such proof things are being documented in the newspaper. Recently we can see something, but whether these are heard into the other parts of India, and whether we know these women were historically relevant, and how we could see this issue, is all a discussion of intersectionality, of course. Now, if we look at this thing, I was trying to say, that there is a protest. There has been different protests happening from different people, and then recently we could see also one example to ask this question: can other genders also enter into history? Whether it will be, how it will be taken up if they start also doing something for the society and saying something seriously to make any change, etc. So a recent example of inequality of intersectionality, we could say that there was one news. There was a news Malen Tongam, Malen Tongam, a transgender activist from Manipur, started hunger strike in the national capital of to draw attention to the ethnic violence raging in the state since last May. We all know in Manipur what's happening. So to end this ethnic violence, Maleng Tongam was starting a hunger strike. After 1 month, she stopped it. March 22nd, she stopped it. That's what news says. She was picked up by the police, but later and she stopped it. But she observed it for 1 month, demanding this. But this was not really positively documented, I think. Why? It is also again about the identity of who is doing a strike, even if it's a strike against the powers or authorities. Sometimes it gets a kind of recognition which depends upon the person the identity of the person or the group who do the protest. So this is actually not taken up seriously. That's the impression what I'm getting. A sudden response or anything was not really there, but still this initiative is there. So this is an aspect also debatable and in the framework of intersectionality. It is, the news showed that Bishnupur district on Tuesday staged a sit-in demonstration at the temporary market shed in Bishnupur Bazaar, demanding authorities concerned to end the ongoing violence in the state. There are various protests like that going. Whether it is documented, it will get documented. This is all things to be thought about. So some other aspect also I wanted to talk about, some other meetings happening. before this ending up of Maleng Tongam's hunger strike, and there was a meeting happening, a collective of the transgender members of Bishnapur, along with Abun Banu Bilup, a women's group. So there is a tie, I can say, and women's group and other genders group, all are being working hand in hand to protest against the injustices, inequality issues, and these all would come under the discussion of, examples, good examples to discuss the issues of intersectionality, regional inequality, and other factors of intersectional India. When we discuss this aspect, one more thing, I will stop with mentioning Meghalaya also. In Meghalaya also, Meghalaya we cannot really see that kind of women's group, strong women's group or anything, but there are women's organizations which are connected to some officers, like it is a governmental or some. It's not autonomous women's group or anything, that can Northeast network like that we can see, which is generally discussing women's issues, but not like a movement, let's say so. It's like something like groups connected to having administrative connections, alliances. It's not a protesting and group or movement or anything like that, but still the issues of women in the history of Meghalaya, or women's history in Meghalaya, to say so, which we could really understand from the book of Patricia Mukim, famous journalist from Meghalaya, from Shillong. She wrote, that book also came up recently in 2019. This book is published by Martin Luther Christian University, Shillong. So the book is called Waiting for an Equal World, Gender in India's Northeast. In this book, we could see the explanation on the matrilineal society in Meghalaya. So we have heard, she talks about this issue, that all over the world, Meghalaya society is known for being matrilineal, and they think that women are so safe and they are respected very well, being the woman in a matrilineal household. But the reality, she is saying, there is this high time to make a reality checkup, because this matrilineal doesn't give any special, any assurity that the women are like safe, or women are having high position in the family and society. She is writing a lot about rapes happening in the state, so many cases of molesting and so on and so forth. So there are issues in the society which are like also not documented even in the history. History says something else, that the culture admires or gives a woman a great position in the matrilineal society like that. But the reality is not like that. So how the history writing will give a different picture than the reality is also another issue that we have to address. So this is actually only a short account of some parts of Northeast. So what I was trying to do is to address the issue of regional address the intersectional issues with reference to mainly with reference to regional identity, ethnic identity, cultural, gender identity, mainly, and other levels of other aspects of other aspects of intersectionality would also apply. So overlapping these aspects would actually make it more strong in a way of our critical thinking, make it very strong to see the real issue and to raise our consciousness into a critical level. We will need this kind of a perspective or a theoretical framework of intersectionality, I would say. I think I'll stop here. It's too long time I was talking, I'm sorry. So we will have discussion if any questions and comments. So I'm not saying that the world has, for the positive thinking, I would say that the world has started actually recognizing that there are these kinds of issues like intersectional aspects which are overlapping and mutually reinforcing to make the situations worse for women and other genders, which we have to study very well to solve issues of inequalities. Thank you.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Congratulations for your very, very nice presentation, ma'am.
Yeah.
Before coming to Manipur, I would like to say something about this inequality and intersectional. Coming to history, like we have particularly I have been telling the archives, Manipur State Archives, and also our history department in Manipur University History Department, so that this documentation should be done. I had been, by the grace of God, I had been, tied up with 1-2 NGOs related with women, working on women. And I had been telling, requesting the state archives, then art and culture, though it is the main office, that archives comes under art and culture. I had once met the director of art and culture and also the deputy director of archives, state archives, to